that was a really bad time to do that, Chris. Thank you. Hello, everyone, for the 700th time, 72nd time. We are back with the podcast, the CoinDrop podcast, with a guest who decided to interrupt our B-roll roll in there. So thanks for that, buddy. Will not be invited back. He's going to be banned after. No, I'm just kidding. Joining me as always is Tim. We're here to talk about some video games. I, of course, am your second host, the one and only Russ Gill fill-in, wearing the Warhammer ugly sweater. Got it in the mail. Fits great. Comfortable. I don't get any kind of money for promoting these. I just think they're really fucking cool, and I think you should buy one. Those links, that link is in episode 2 ago now? 2 ago? 70? Since 70, right? Yeah.
Two ago.
Look, man, it's been a day, all right? It's 2 ago. Shut up. Okay. All right.
I mean, I didn't say anything.
I think it's well established that English and words are hard for you, so we're good.
It's well established that I would be illiterate without video games. So there's that.
Right. You have said that.
I have said that. Speaking of something else I've said multiple times, thanks for the great segue there, Tim. We have a Patreon, and you should check it out. And in fact, the reason Chris is here, one, he's a good friend of mine. Two, he is our top level Patreon, which he is allowed patron, whatever. He's allowed access to come onto the show occasionally to guest host. One of the perks of the higher tiers of our patronage. There you go. Yeah. One of those. Words are hard, right? Anyways.
Yeah, I see that.
It's amazing I've done it this long and nobody shot me, right? If you have it in your heart and your wallet to be able to afford giving us an extra $3 at a minimum a month, you get access to this podcast today early. You get access to some extra content. Today we have some good topics over there. Some recent news about Archage Chronicles, announcement of a sequel to a great horror game that was incredibly underrated, Last Generation, the port of a much beloved Western game finally coming to PC, some great news about Astrobot, the PS5, and a new indie game. So if you want to hear about that, you're going to have to head over to Patreon after this and check it out over there. That being said, now that the plugs are out of the way, Tim, let's start with you. How's your week been, man? What have you been up to?
Dealing with my 8-year-old. I don't remember exactly which day it was, but I think it was Tuesday. She fell off a truck at her grandparents' house and broke her arm. So, yay! Thankfully it's not a bad break. I mean it's broken, but it's
clean break.
The way the doctor put it was clean break, and she should only have the cast for about a month. It wouldn't be too bad. I did learn that I'm sure you guys have heard the term cats are liquid. Apparently kids are too. Effectively, he was telling me that if this is the bone here. If it was literally 100% offset, that's okay. So long as it's not like really far off or one's poked out of the skin or something like that. If they're just, then no big deal. They'll just put a cast on it and it'll heal. Like, that's insane. Like, no need to reset or anything. It'll just take care of itself. Yeah. But yeah, hers is pretty clean. So ultimately she's fine. I mean, it sucks that she's got a cast, but she's figuring it out. Yep.
So that 1%'s in the chat here. So that one finger is going to have super strength. Yeah. I guess so. Have you played anything this week? Did you get any chance to play any games?
No, unfortunately I didn't. And I'm actually losing all of my overtime starting this next week. So that pro might have to wait a little bit.
That sucks.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm actually potentially considering asking for a layoff so I can go to a job that has overtime.
Yeah,
more or less.
Chris, what have you been up to, man? How's your week been? Not like we don't spend every day of the week together, but I'm going to pretend for the audience that we don't work together. What did you do this week?
Okay. Well, I'm not going to pretend.
That's fine.
Because that would be rude. No, I've just been working on all my VA stuff. Like, let me tell you, the amount of phone calls I've done with the VA just this week alone. Like, I called and I was like, hey, like I need this one thing and this one other thing. And now I've got 7 other appointments left.
Yeah, that sounds like the VA.
The worst part about it is like they called me like back to back to back to back to back to back today. Other than that, I've just
Saturday.
been, just going down. Yeah, I know, right? Saturday. I've just been going down the rabbit hole of Warhammer lore, and got myself a couple of new games actually off of a Humble Bundle, a charity thing that they were going off of. So I've been playing a game that's been scratching 3 itches for me in one go, and I've been loving it.
What is it?
Tactical turn-based game. Basically, it plays like XCOM.
Yeah.
Instantly not interested.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Well, you're fired.
I don't like those style of games as well.
Yeah.
It's probably good. It's just not me.
It's a Warhammer game, and I've been on a Warhammer binge.
You sure have.
For a while now.
Yeah.
And 2, it actually features my favorite chapter of Space Marines, and that is the Grey Knights. So I've been super loving it.
Cool. I have been I've been playing BG3, finished up my first solo playthrough. We're working on finishing up our duos, and I started my last honor mode playthrough to hopefully kind of be done with that game and be able to uninstall it and get 500 gigs of space back on my drive, which will be fantastic.
100 gigs.
Yeah, dude, it's a big fucking game on PC, and then mods on top of that, which don't add too much, but like obviously makes the file size slightly bigger. Outside of that, grass is coming in the backyard. I'm taking Monday off to work on the bathroom to try and start remodeling that, so we actually have a functioning bathroom for when Thanksgiving happens, because we always host that here. And the wife and I went on a pretty fun date earlier that was cool. And tomorrow I'm killing some chickens, so that's kind of
Sounds fun.
Yeah, getting some fresh meat, processing just a couple of meat birds, so should be pretty quick and easy. But let's talk about some games. So on screen, for those who are watching, joining us here on Twitch or watching this later on YouTube, it occurs to me, I plugged our Patreon, didn't plug the name. Patreon.com/CoinDropPod. I'm really on top of it today, guys. You can also find all of our links at linktree.com/CoinDropVets. So there's that too. Just go to that one. Throne and Liberty. Tim, you haven't played this.
I've been wanting to.
Yeah, I've been wanting to as well, but there's one of us here who has played this, and he is shaking his head adamantly, telling us, "Oh no, you sweet summer child." Chris, what's going on, man? What's going on with Throne and Liberty? What's the word?
All right. So I love RPGs. Russ, you know that about me. Like, RPGs is probably like my number one genre of game that I love to play.
Mm-hmm.
Throne and Liberty, it's something feels off about it when you start to play it. And it's one of those really weird things. Like it's like when you go into something, like, like all the traditional features are there, like you can, they've got 2 different styles that you can play it. It's basically like the classic where a tab lock.
Yeah, tab targeting.
Yeah, tab targeting. Or this other one, they call it action something or other. But basically it's where your mouse is basically a crosshair and you click. You have to click on what you want to, target and attack and all that stuff.
Okay.
And I'm just like, okay, sure. I mean, but that's an RPG for you, sure. But something about the way they do the combat, like, I don't know if it's just the aesthetics or what, but like as you're doing the tab targeting, it just feels off. And on top of that, the entire game just has that super, like, I'm Korean feel to it. Like, like those games that they have, like it, where everything, it's like,
they're usually monetary based. They're buy to win or pay to win rather. And if you don't grind your ass off, then you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah. So they don't have anything yet that's like pay to win, basically. They do have a battle pass. So, they have your standard free battle pass. They have a premium battle pass. It is a very grindy game. So one of the big things that they were talking about and wanting to feature was they're like, oh, hey, you can basically morph into animals, and that allows you to traverse the world better and easier in different ways. So you've got like a swim morph, a flying morph, and a ground morph, right? you can level each one of those things independently. And that basically increases your speed, I think it's like stamina bar, basically, and all kinds of other stuff. They don't have set classes like most RPGs do. Instead, they basically kind of do something that like what New World did, where you can basically equip whatever weapon combinations you want and make your character play the way you want to play it.
That's becoming increasingly popular in RPGs these days.
Yeah, I have to admit, I don't like that. I don't like it at all.
I think Final Fantasy XIV did a great job with that, but I think a lot of other RPGs just kind of missed the mark in that style.
It feels like to me that instead of balancing the different classes, they were like, fuck it, do what you want, and balancing be damned. And obviously they try to balance, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of like the lazy way is what I'm saying. Instead of trying to do the work to make sure their game is fun for everyone in various ways, they're just like, figure it out yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
I kind of know. Sorry, not to interrupt you again, but I kind of understand. But I kind of also don't understand your like the Korean vibe, because like I kind of got, I think, what you're talking about out of Lost Ark when that came out. So it's just that weird like
everything. It's the lighting and smoothness. Of it all. Like the art, the aesthetics of it all. Right. Like it's like everything is like super
Koreans,
youthful.
Yeah, it's always like ultra beauty and everything's perfect, and like you mentioned, youthful, and there is no ugly. Everything's got
grit.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Zero grit. Yeah, zero grit to the game.
All right, I'm getting what you're putting down.
Like if you think like Black Desert Online, where everything is just like over the top, given it doesn't have that level of character customization, but everything's just like really over the top, like perfect world like type thing. You're just like, this
doesn't feel right,
looks weird to me. Like enough. It's not what I'm used to. At its core, the game is generally not awful. Like I'm not gonna say it's like a horrible game, don't play it, but like if you can get over like that type of stuff, which I know like a lot of American based like RPG players, like they don't play for that kind of like art style, you know. Like we've got WoW, we've got or had Ragnarok Online, you know, we've got Final Fantasy 14, and Final Fantasy 14 still has some of that aspect because it is, you know, Japanese, but the Japanese take that art concept and do it differently, to where not everything is super shiny and, you know, all that.
What really kills me with a lot of the Korean games is the overuse of particle effects and like visual effects in general, like that. Like when they showed Crimson Desert or whatever it was, all I saw that entire trailer was nothing but particle effects. I'm like, this is ugly as hell. Can I turn that off?
It's such a strange thing to me that like you're the only person I've ever heard complain about particle effects.
It's just too much. It's just too much
in any form or fashion, because most people are like, give me more, because it makes the game. It's an easy thing for developers to add to give. I don't know the proper word for it, but basically it makes the game feel more alive. It's almost free when it comes to the computational side of things,
right?
And most developers are like, do this because it adds, you know, nuance or volume to the game in such an easy way to do it. I mean, I would say 14 does a bad job of that, especially in boss fights.
It has way too much too.
And stuff.
Yeah,
there's so much going on.
There you can edit that. You can edit the levels. You can actually turn it off so that anybody but yours.
In Throne and Liberty, or are you talking about 14?
In 14. And 14, Throne and Liberty, as far as I can tell, you can't turn off particle effects.
So particle effects for me, like it's like lens flare, right? Like a good use of lens flare in a movie looks good. J.J. Abrams in Star Trek, not so much. A little too much lens flare. Little too much lens flare in that movie. It's just too. It's all about like it's the Salt Bay, right? Like you got to get the right amount, and when it's just everywhere, everything, all the time, it's just too much for me.
Yeah. So my big number one complaint about Throne and Liberty is how clunky the combat feels. Like it in so many RPGs, like even WoW, like I've probably put 30 hours into WoW before I was like, I can't do the art style. It's just not for me.
Sure.
The combat just feels weird. It like you can go from like tab targeting, but even that just kind of like the way like the skill cooldowns are done, weapon swapping, like it's like the cooldowns themselves, like the global cooldowns, just throw you off just that much when you're used to having that level of control over your character, the combat, what skills you're using. Like there's enough of a pause between everything that just it throws me off to the point where like it honestly makes me hate it.
Huh.
Yeah, like it's you do one skill, okay, cool. And like literally between like that sentence where it's like you do one skill, boom. Okay, cool. Now I'm throwing my next skill rather than just being like, okay, I've got my active skills, I've got my global cooldowns. Like as far as I can tell, like Throne and Liberty does not have like that combination of thing. Like
everything's one skill cooldown.
Yeah, yeah. It's they're all active skills, but you can't chain them all as quick as like.
Yeah, it's not like Final Fantasy 14 where you can chain everything together, where there's like a comboing style to it.
Yeah. Yeah, like
what I was going to ask,
of course, you can still.
Is there an abundance of abilities, or is it one of those games where you only have like 3 or 4?
So I wouldn't say you have an abundance of abilities.
Probably standard amount for an MMO, right? Like you're probably going to fill
Final Fantasy 14, where you can have 1 through 9, and then you can have 3 of those bars if you choose. While like you mentioned in New World, you can have like 2 or 3. So that's why I'm asking.
So you have more than 2 or 3, but you have significantly less than 114 does. You have 1 hotbar, and if I remember right, you can probably set up about 3 or 4 per weapon on the 1 hotbar, or you can just pick or choose. Basically, you have 1 hotbar, and you can fill it up with skills from both weapon sets. So you don't have to be like, okay, like 1 through 5 is, my great sword, and then, 6 through 0 is like my bow or whatever you decide to do. You can actually, you have 1 hotbar and you just mix and match your skills. But if you want to use the skills, this is one thing I will give them credit for. If you want to use the skills of your off weapon, you don't have to swap weapons to activate that skill. As long as you have that weapon equipped, you can actually just go ahead and activate that skill. Because one of the things I was trying to do, I was like, okay, I can use my sword and board, and I can use the wand and tome. So like maybe I'll do like a paladin thing, focus on buffing, maybe a little bit of healing, but be like that paladin or Templar type tank, And I realized, I was like, oh, I don't have to swap weapons to heal myself or to give this buff. So it's like that. That's awesome. I love that. That's great. Because I can just stick my sword and board. I can be up front, just sit there and watch myself. And then be like, okay, boom, buff. It's like, okay, cool. Don't need to take the extra 2 seconds to swap weapons and then do my spell or whatever. I mean, the game looks beautiful, like it does, but that's what they designed the game to look like.
There's no reason for a game not to look beautiful this day and age with UE5 and just
So like the trailer that you guys actually have playing right now,
right?
That look, if the game looked like that, it just that little bit of grit to it, I'd probably have given it more of a chance. And been like, okay, maybe if I progress into the game more, the clunkiness of the combat, because early game, games always feel bad early game,
especially MMOs.
Oh, yes. Especially MMOs, yeah. I mean, that's actually honestly what I've been thinking this whole time is how much time did you actually really give it? How far did you get into it? And particularly your complaints, they kind of sound minimal, honestly. Like there's nothing major.
I mean, other than the combat feeling clunky, but like when he says that, the first thing I think is okay, clunky as in old or clunky as in bad, right? Like because if it plays tab-based targeting is my bread and butter. Grew up playing EverQuest, love EverQuest. I think, like most people, they think their first MMO is the greatest MMO. It's not a unique view. So tab-based targeting is immediately like a big go for me. And while you're making me not want to play the game, you're also equally making me want to play the game so that I can see my perspective of kind of what you're talking about.
I have it down.
And Russ, you know exactly. Yeah, Russ, and you know exactly my mentality on stuff, because we've talked about movies and like the exact same aspect. It's like, this is how I feel about the game. I do not like this game. Like I wanted to like it. I wanted to love it, because I know at work you and I have talked about Throne and Liberty and being excited for it.
Yeah.
You might like it. You know, if like tab targeting games, like tab targeting MMOs are your bread and butter, you might like it.
I might. And that's the thing about this that people need to remember, is this is just one person's perspective. It doesn't it doesn't make or break anything. This is just he's played the game and he's here sharing his opinions.
Yeah. Like I said, like the weapon systems, like I like that. You know, you level each weapon independently. There are like skill tomes to where you can sit there and level the weapons, your passive skills, your active skills, and all that kind of stuff. Like overall, the system is actually good. Like I love the bones and the foundation that the game is built on. But there are the first two things that I look at in a game for me to play is, one, can I stand to actually stare at the art style that is on my screen right now? And if the answer is no, I'm not going to play it. I don't care how good the game is. If I can't stand looking at the gate, like I'm not going to enjoy it. That's part of that's the main reason I didn't play WoW. Like I didn't like the fact that like all the main characters are just like, and all the female characters are like twigs.
Yes.
It's like, well, this is stupid.
To be fair, the game came out in like 2005,
but it was also stylized even then, right? Like it was designed to be a stylized game, and I agree. Like that was part of what turned me off about WoW too. Is EverQuest felt more, as weird as this is to say, it felt more realistic in its art style at the time. It didn't have that like huge bulky like you said, you know. So that's kind of what turned me off too. So that's, I think, a fair point. If you can't stand the art style of a game, it doesn't matter how good the game is. So now, one of the things that matters to me, how's the character creation? You said it wasn't as good as Black Desert Online. That's not a surprise. That game has an insane character creation and is not the rule. Yeah, how is it in general, though? Yeah.
So character creation is actually pretty good. Again, it's not like a super in-depth character creator like what Dragon's Dogma 2 had. Okay. It's very similar. It's not that far from. Like it's very close. You can very closely edit your characters. Like it doesn't have like the micromanaged levels, but you can change like the cheekbones, like the depth, the cheeks, the width of your like jawline and all that kind of stuff.
I'll give you a metric. Better or worse than Skyrim? Because that's kind of that continues to be the metric I go back to, because Skyrim had, for its time, a very good character creation. Like the level of fields that you could address and change and manipulate in Skyrim in 2011 was pretty impressive. So would you say better or worse than Skyrim?
I would say worse. It's probably about 2 steps down. Okay. Like I said, you can still adjust. You can still adjust all of those features, but the depth of adjustment that you can do for those features isn't as deep as like Skyrim or like Dragon's Dogma and stuff like that.
Like they just don't want you to be able to make like really, really ugly characters or funny looking stupid ones. They won't want you to be within the aesthetic of the beauty that they're going for.
Probably. Yeah.
Now, one thing I will say that is actually super cool that you can do with Throne and Liberty is at character creation, they've got a little QR code that you can basically click on to bring up, and you can use your phone or whatever to basically scan that QR code, and you can upload a selfie, like a picture of yourself, and the game will actually create a character based on whatever they, like the character creation, like details they have, and they will basically make a character that looks like you.
How's that work with beards?
Wasn't there like a 360 game that lets you do that?
They have beard options. They do have beard options, but like typical Korean fashion, it's you either have a really ugly beard or you're clean shaven.
Yeah. Tim, the game you were thinking of was actually
Koreans don't believe in facial hair.
Yeah. The game you're thinking of, Tim, was actually, believe it or not, Rainbow Six Vegas 1.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. You can take a picture of yourself or
Did
whatever.
you not know this?
So I remember that.
You could get the webcam for the Xbox 360, and with Rainbow Six Vegas 1, it had a feature that allowed you to take multiple pictures of your head and paste it into the game as the character for the custom character. It looked ugly as sin, but you could do it.
It was bad.
It looked real bad.
It's honestly a feature that I haven't I'm surprised never really got big because I don't know. I mean, back in the day, there wasn't AI to do so,
right.
But now
there is, and you can actually right now make a fully mapped, meta-rigged 3D model of any person very easily with online software now. Like any freaking person, you can make a 3D model of right now. It's part of why deepfakes are such a big issue and a lot of other things. But
they showed off that meta-human thing.
Dude, meta-human's fucking amazing.
And meta-human's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, bottom line with Throne and Liberty, it sounds like it's not your cup of tea, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad game. It sounds like it has good bones, very much the way Diablo 3 had good bones, and it took them 10 years to really make it good, and the way Diablo 4, in my opinion, has good bones, but is probably 4 or 5 years away from being good. So that's kind of what the gist I'm getting from you, other than the art style, right? Like, there's nothing you can do about that.
So the game, when did the game officially launch? I'm trying to remember the date.
Last month, I believe.
I don't.
In America,
I don't think
last
it's
month.
I don't think it's officially launched yet. Actually, no, it did. It would have been last week, I believe, because I got a code for the
you're right.
beta,
It was last week.
Probably like 2 days before the global release.
October 1st was when it launched in America.
October 1st. Okay, so it's been about 2 weeks. The reason why I'm asking is because I'm looking at the Steam charts for it at the moment, and its peak was 336,000 players, which was pretty good. But they're basically keeping a really consistent daily peak of about 250, 200 to closer to 300. And right now there's 165,000 people playing it, which is a pretty hefty number. That it didn't just instantly tank, and it doesn't have too much of a downtrend that you might have expected. Of course, it's only a week at this point, but it's also doing a lot better than hell. As a perfect example, Until Dawn, the PlayStation game that just launched, apparently it's doing worse. It's doing worse than the Concord did, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But my point is there's plenty of games that are major games that die quickly, and so
again, I don't like it. I don't like the game. It's something about the I can't even tell you exactly what, but something about the combat just feels clunky to me.
Yeah.
And I literally got just tired of staring at the game on my screen and uninstalled.
Fair enough. Full disclosure, I'm currently downloading it. I might check it out tonight. We'll see.
I'm going to.
Yeah,
I'm like 20 minutes away from it being finished. So by the time we're done with everything, it's going to be ready to go.
So let's do.
Definitely give me your guys' opinions on the game.
What we'll do,
for sure,
Tim, if you're up for it, post podcast party, we'll do a stream of.
Sounds good.
All right, so that will be the stream after this one. After we get back from our Patreon side, we'll stream some Throne and Liberty, and you guys will get our opinions on it. That being said,
one more thing.
Go ahead.
The story, let me know what you guys feel about the story, because it feels rushed.
Ooh, don't like that word. Okay.
Like somebody just threw wet spaghetti at the wall and was just like, boom, that's it right there.
Well, even if they did that, they did better than F-Fantastic, because this game has survived more than 3 days. So,
yes, this is
applause to them for making a game that has a staying power of at least a week or two. We'll see where it goes from there.
Hey, wait.
It did better than Concord too,
because you can't talk that about them. They're back.
We're gonna get to them later, Freddie. We're gonna check in on their fucking Kickstarter. I'm gonna tell you what.
Oh, I looked at it. I looked at it yesterday at work. It actually gained another like $10, but that was about it.
All right.
Oh my god.
I can't believe people are throwing money at that.
They're getting their fifth second chance. All right.
Yeah, they got one more donation from last week. So in a week they gained one donation. And it wasn't much.
I'm still convinced everybody that's donated so far is part of the team.
Well, because of what you said, that makes me believe it. Considering over the last week they've gotten nothing except for a very small donation. So I think you're right. I mean, hell, I'd say this game has done even better than Concord. It's not quite 2 weeks old yet, but before the game launched, they had 50,000 players, and hell, I don't think Concord was able to break 600. So,
well,
sorry, Sony.
yeah. Throne and Liberty, we'll see. You'll get our opinions on it later. Audio listeners, I guess you'll have to check out our secondary Twitch stream for that at twitch.tv/CoinDropVets to see what we think about it over there. But let's move on to Tim's topic, a new indie game being announced that has shown some interesting content. I believe the Chat GPT title that was filtered out for this particular game on this article was basically Witcher meets Diablo, right? So let's see.
Yeah, more or less.
What does that what does that mean?
So from what I gather, the title, by the way, is, I believe it's pronounced Bylina. If he's correct in this being Chat GPT, they said that the game is channeling the fantasy energy of The Witcher and combining it with the darkness of games like Diablo. From what I gather, I mean, this article is
a couple days old.
Almost a couple days old, but it almost reads like it's actually coming from the developers themselves. So it kind of almost seems like maybe this was
press release,
their portion of the press release. Yeah. But there's definitely some stuff in there that's clearly not from them. But what I can gather, watching the video that comes with it, it looks awesome. It's a Diablo combat. Excuse me, with the Slavic history or mythology rather that comes with The Witcher. That's where they're crossing the two games. It's a top-down action game, like I said, and it I don't know. I can't say it has a horror element to it, but like I don't know why. But like Diablo is, you're killing demons and you
there's some
fight the
body
devil and
horror
stuff
involved.
like that. But there's I don't know. I wouldn't really call a whole lot of horror involved in that. There's something weird about it to me. I've never been like it never felt anything like a horror game. It's more like I'm the hero. Everything's gonna die in my wake, and therefore there's no reason to be afraid. Even though especially once you get to hell, you're like, fuck me. But
its setting is horror. I don't think the game genre is horror, right? Like there's from the perspective of an average person, right? Like Space Marine 2 is a good example of like a horror game. From the perspective of an average person, that game is a fucking is a nightmare. The character, not so much, and that's the same thing with Diablo. But like you can't tell me that walking through fields of blood and guts and ooze is not like so
that's not what I'm trying to say. What I mean to say is the way they make you as the player feel,
right? There's
no horror element to it. If I was the average person, like in a survival type game or whatever, then sure, I'd be like, I'm totally screwed. But and bringing that up with this type of game, it almost feels they're doing a better job with the environmental portions of things to make it feel like it might be a little bit more of a horror game, or maybe it's just Slavic horror is scarier than what they're going for in Diablo.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. So
Slavic horror and Gothic horror are two very different levels of horror.
Slavic is usually very nature based too. Like they're very grounded in their horror. Like it's where you get like I believe the Baba Yaga is Slavic, right? I feel like so. So that's
Baba Yaga is Slavic.
Yeah, that's fucking terrifying. So
true.
Yeah.
So to read you what this is the portion that feels like the press release, but I'm going to read it anyway. It says, as you venture through the far, far kingdom in a mysterious land far away in the cities of, you'll be able to upgrade your gear as well as your various magical powers. Unlike Diablo, you are not class locked, meaning you can experiment with bows, spears, and a good old-fashioned sword and shield, and a vast array of other armaments. It says, but since you're the hero of the game's tale, the world around you isn't simply black and white. You'll encounter a myriad of lost souls in your adventure, and how you interact with them matters.
Okay.
Falconet, which is the character, himself will experience his own anxieties, fear, and victories, reminding you why you need to free yourself from, I think it's called Kashi, his deathless grasp. It says, but it can't be glossed over that the world is gorgeous, from rural Eastern European-inspired farmland and villages to treasure halls and eerie religious sanctums. The world looks gorgeous, more or less. Each area has puzzles, challenges, and locals to interact with, and this person's adding their own text to it. It's not worth reading.
Yeah.
But from what I can see in the trailer, it does have that area, that sorry, not the area, but that aura of you're not necessarily that badass that destroys everything in its wake. You got to be careful. I mean, in part of the trailer, the guy's running down what looks decidedly Diablo in the heaven elements.
Yeah,
I can't remember the world, but he's running down like this pathway, and there's hands coming out of the side of like a bridge, and they're just like reaching at him. He's also running away from some enemies, and like it doesn't look like you can do much, but holy shit, do your best to survive. And the game just looks really solid. There's a little confusing dance at the end where there's like 6 characters in a circle.
I noticed that.
The scenery keeps changing. I don't know what the hell that's about. It doesn't specify anything. I don't know if that's just some weird advertising or I don't know, maybe it's going to be some sort of like teleportation.
Probably ritual based.
Ritual, that's the word I'm looking for.
So I'm trying to find out more about this publisher because this is the developer's first game. It's Far Games is developing this. They're being published by Fulcrum Publishing. I think that's how that's pronounced. It looks like they're from Czechia. So I don't know where the studio is based, but the developer is definitely like, this is their lore, right? Like this is they're grounded the same way that the Ukrainians are grounded in Stalker 2, or Stalker 2 is grounded in Ukrainians. So that's cool. I personally love like Eastern European lore. There's a lot of horror involved in that. Actually, one of my favorite horror movies of all time is a movie called The Ritual, which I don't know if you guys have seen that. If you haven't, if you're hearing my voice and you haven't seen that movie and you like horror movies that are not just gore and over the top, The Ritual is such an insanely terrifying psychological horror that gets really nasty at the end. It might turn you off of camping and backpacking. That's what I'm going to say. Like it inspired like an entire section of the campaign that I was doing for D&D that we never got to before my daughter was born when I was being a DM. Like that movie is absolutely terrifying. My attention.
Dude, like
The Ritual.
Psychological horror is like the only type of horror, like movie wise for me, because everything else is so gimmicky.
The premise is pretty straightforward. I'm not going to give you too much. A group of friends go on a backpacking trip in Eastern Europe to honor their friend who died, and you find out kind of the stipulations around that. Well, one of them gets injured, the sun starts going down, things start happening. It's
Does
really
only
good.
one of them survive at the end?
No, I don't remember if anyone survives, to be honest. I'm
because I'm reading a synopsis and I'm like, this sounds super vaguely familiar, but I'm wondering if I'm thinking the same movie.
Either way, it's worth rewatching.
Coming down and my battery's getting real low.
Just shut up. But yeah, if you haven't seen The Ritual, it's fantastic. It's just great, plain and simple. Bylina looks awesome. I'm actually really excited for it. I hope it has co-op. It should have co-op. It feels like it should have co-op.
Yeah.
The combat does look very like Diablo-esque, and I big points there for me.
And I like that art style to where it's like it has that type of art style that like I've begun to associate with like storytelling games.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're not here to like ooh and awe you with like our graphics and particle effects, but like here's a relatively simple game without being super simple, but like it looks nice, it looks appealing, it's got that grit to it, and like the art just screams, hey, I'm telling you a story.
Yeah.
Like pay attention.
More or less is sort of what we've been talking about quite a bit over the past couple of months, is where they're not going for hyper realism. They're just going for something that's good.
Yeah.
Good content, good combat, good mechanics. They just want the game to be good. And who cares if the graphics are amazing or not? Obviously, that helps in some cases, but ultimately, that's not what matters.
Yeah, it's an interesting, like there's still very much a place in my heart and my desire for games that are gorgeous to look at. But there's, to me, there's not a huge difference graphically when comparing something like Senua Hellblade, Senua Saga from Hellblade, right? Versus like, I don't know, let's say just for sake of argument, Cyberpunk, right? Like graphical quality. Obviously, Hellblade is fidelity-wise graphically more impressive.
Way better.
But like,
I think what you're saying.
Yeah, it gets to that, it's that diminishing returns, right? Once you hit a certain point, going past that point is almost not worth it. Like, I don't care if I can see every follicle of skin on my character's face. I don't care if I see every tiny little itty bitty thing reflected in the pond. If you get the general picture of it and it looks clean and good, we're good to go, buddy. Like, it doesn't need to be that high level.
Yeah, because at that point, it's like you're just forcing consumers to, get more expensive hardware and like put more money into just being able to try and enjoy what's supposed to be a fun pastime.
Right. Ultimately, that's what gaming should be. And I think there's a place for those games, by all means. Like, I think Until Dawn was one of those games when it came out that graphically looked gorgeous, and I think the remake should be as well. It has problems on PC, which we talked about last episode, but it's one of those where it's like that hyper attention to detail fits this game, because this game is basically watching a movie, right? But like, it doesn't need that in everything. And action RPGs benefit because they're so CPU heavy by all the computations they have to go through. Dropping that toll on the GPU is not a bad idea, and you still end up with a game that looks really good, because perspectively speaking, in games that are ARPGs, your shaders, your lighting effects, and your shadows are the most important thing to really set what the scene looks like.
Yep.
So
there's
agreed.
I'm looking forward to it. It's one of those
things that games don't do. They don't put enough emphasis on, and that's one of the things that makes the game look so much better, regardless of what the art style is. And I feel like it should be more emphasis should be put onto it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Bylina. We don't have an exact release date. We know the window is sometime next year. It is available on Steam. I've already wishlisted it. I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely going to keep my eye on it. Speaking of upcoming potentially great games, Halo has announced a little bit of a shakeup in what they're doing.
They're going multi-platform.
They are going multi-platform, which is
pretty much.
But oddly, that's not the shakeup they're talking
right.
about.
That's the weird thing. They're just kind of sweeping that under the rug.
It's the unwritten part of the announcement.
So they're switching to UE5, and for the life of me, I can't understand why they hadn't years ago. I genuinely cannot understand why they didn't switch to UE on UE4. Well, I can understand why they didn't do UE4, but UE3 was good. UE4 had a lot of bugs and issues, and that's where a lot of people started developing their own in-house engines and doing that, and we saw that. UE5 is bringing people back because they addressed a lot of those issues. So I get the now shifting. I just don't understand why they weren't already there from UE3 age. It seems weird to me.
I think the reason why they wouldn't have swapped over is because there was the whole shift of developers, when Bungie left, and they had to pick up. So they picked up with what they knew worked. Yeah. And instead of starting from scratch, they took all of the old stuff and it
bit them in the fucking ass.
I mean, I don't think it was just the fact that they stuck with an old engine.
Yeah.
It's not even just a cost analysis thing. It's, as far as it being broken, rather. Yeah. It's a developer jumping in, and they didn't have nearly the level of experience that Bungie did with the IP, and they were like, well, let's do something new, and just kept making mistakes, which actually, it reminds me, I saw an article that was like, why would we trust a developer that fucked Halo to make the next one better? What?
Well, so
there's possibility.
There is, and the reason I have a little bit of faith in them is Halo Infinite. I haven't played the campaign, but I've heard Halo Infinite is actually a pretty solid Halo entry. Putting Halo 4 and 5 behind us, Halo Infinite, I can tell you from experience, the multiplayer is on point. So if the gameplay for the single player campaign is anything like the gunplay and gameplay of Infinite multiplayer, which why would it be any different? It's a solid game, in my opinion. It's a solid Halo. It's not better than Reach, but I don't know that there will ever be a Halo that's better than Reach, in my opinion. Chris, we've talked about that at length.
Oh, yeah.
But they don't... First of all, going multi-platform is not something I ever expected in the 20-something years that I've been playing Halo. I never in my wildest dream would have believed Halo would ever end up on PlayStation. That is such a wild fucking statement that we're actually at this point. It's kind of broken my brain.
We're technically not at that point yet. They didn't confirm anything, but if they're going to go to an engine like Unreal Engine, which is a multi-platform engine by default, it would be sort of stupid for them not to make it on PlayStation or other platforms.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think at this point that they need to just start over with Halo. Don't make a sequel, because the kind of fuckery they've done with the storyline and how they've made everything basically how do I put this? They basically said, hey, what happened in the last game didn't work, so that doesn't matter anymore. So we're going to make it whatever this game is, but also some of that matters. But then the next game after that, they're going to fuck it all over again, and there's just no continuity to anything.
That became incredibly apparent with Infinite, right? Like, there was the big question of where does this fall in the timeline? And they're like, well, it's a reimagining, but not a reboot. But no, stop that.
You just need to reboot it. Start over and reimagine it. Say, this is the beginning of Halo, reimagined. Yep. Go from there. Do what Tomb Raider did. Don't care about the past.
Yep.
Use it as a guideline at best.
Yeah.
Like them making, like, if they took ODST and then like expanded on like a team of ODST through like the regular timeline of like Halo and stuff like that. Like, that would be cool.
You know what would be really fucking cool for a Halo ODST game? A Halo ODST game that is pre-Covenant, that is kind of like Rainbow Six Vegas, where you play as ODSTs dealing with like an insurgency.
Rebellion.
Yeah, that would be dope as shit. Playing, like, just completely take the Covenant out of the game and just make it more grounded in the Halo universe prior to like the Covenant. It's literally in the books that there was a rebellion before the war with the Covenant. Like, it's established lore canonically. So like, that would be so fucking cool. That's actually what the Spartans were created to fight. Like.
Yeah, if I remember right, the first couple of Spartan MIAs were because they were dealing with like a major insurgency. I think they like took over like a ship or something like that, and then the Covenant show up and fucked everything up. But like the Spartans didn't even get their shield tech until they actually recovered it from a Covenant dropship or something like that. Like, they had to recover that tech.
It wasn't Spartan 1s basically were an ultimate failure, and then Spartan 2s is where after they encounter the Covenant, that's what John 117 and the rest were Spartan 2s, and that's when they had their like overshield and extra tech like that. But initially the project started to help squash a rebellion, and they have potential to do something great with this, but beyond that, they have the potential to make it VR, and if they don't, the tools exist to make it VR.
And now that it's Unreal Engine and it's a first person, that'd be awesome. And I mean, just imagine too. What if they decided to support PSVR 2 as well? That would be sweet.
All I'm saying is that there's a ton of amazing VR game tech out there for like peripheries that
really is.
Would make wanting. I would drop $2,000 or $3,000 on a VR setup to play Halo VR.
Yeah,
I would too. I've notoriously said that I've never been a big Halo fan, but I did play Infinite when it came out, and I thought the multiplayer was actually pretty good, surprisingly enough, because it was never the multiplayer that I liked.
Right.
But in any case, if they did full on proper VR, I mean, hell, they don't even need to have it. I'm already interested in this next one for the simple fact that I can just play it in VR because of what's that mod called?
It's Prey Dogs VR mod. Now, the thing you have to remember about that is each game that is modded is going to have different levels of usability, I guess, right? So like Resident Evil modded in VR, I don't know that, like, for example, the ProTube, which is the recoil haptic feedback revolver, ProTube revolver, I don't know if that's compatible with that modded version. Whereas if you get Hitman Contracts, which is a fully VR game, it is compatible. So like there's things there, right? Like, worst case scenario, when you're playing Halo UE5 in VR, worst case scenario, you get to look around with your head and aim with your head. Like, that's the literal, like, that's the bare minimum of what would be implemented. Now, if they decide to activate those tools, which it's just a plugin on UE5, it's literally just a plugin. There's probably some coding and visual stuff they'd have to do to actually make it work. But it's there, right? So, like, if they
ultimately be pretty easy,
theoretically.
Russ, I've told you this before, and like we've talked about this again, like at work a couple times. It's what's likely, in my opinion, what's likely going to happen is they're not going to do that.
Likely,
they're going to let the modding community come out and create the foundation for them to be like, oh, hey, we've been working on this all along. Here you go.
They'll just reverse engineer the mod so they can do it themselves.
Yeah, that's because I mean, like, let's be honest. Like, from a business perspective, as like a corporation, stuff like that, that's a cheap way to do it.
So what you're telling me
is
doing that
yourself.
Yeah, I was going to say. So what you're telling me is
yourself.
Good. Good.
Yeah, it's like, why do all the work yourself and pay a ton of money to like software people and like coders, stuff like that, when you can just be like, fuck it, the people are going to do it for me.
What did we call it last time? What did we call it last time, Tim? The official developers?
The official developers? We call the modders the official Bethesda developers.
Right, yeah. And so what you're telling me is the new Halo studio is funded entirely by Bethesda. That does not give me hope, because they're owned by the same parent company.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're owned by
Todd
the same
Howard, keep your
company.
fucking hands off Halo.
Please.
I don't know, man. I've got mixed feelings. We see this a lot. Developers and promotional videos like this all the time, they hit us with boilerplate, right? They go, oh, it's going to look beautiful. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. It's going to be our greatest work. It's going to be, it's boilerplate, man. It's the same shit every developer says every time about their game. Give us some real substance. And the only thing we've gotten from them from real substance is that they're going to have kind of, quote unquote, 3 environments. One is going to be, your typical Halo look that is inspired by the Pacific Northwest, a lot of evergreen trees, waterfalls, rocky terrain, stuff like that. You've got the alien, more alien style icy place that you're seeing here on screen, where it's just kind of a tundra desert shit. And then you've got what they're calling, weirdly enough, the Blightland, which should just be the Floodlands. If it's overrun by floodlands. Don't know why they went with Blightlands, but that's what they chose, which looks more organic and, again, kind of body horror like Diablo and stuff, right? Like, it's all overgrown. It's very organic and pretty gross looking. So that's really all we know. We don't have any content from them in terms of story, if this is a reboot, if this is a continuation, why the fuck Master Chief looks so fucking fat. Like,
I was going to say, I mean, Master Chief looks like he's coming out of retirement. They had to make him a whole new armor set. So, I mean, maybe this is the sequel where they're like, hey, old man, come out here and kill some fucking Covenant. We need your help.
Guys,
John Wick.
You're looking at this all wrong. You're looking at it all wrong.
Okay.
Just shut up and give them your money.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Yes,
just shut up and give them your money.
We got to see what's inside of it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's Pandora's game,
Yeah. But I mean, I'm hopeful. The Halo franchise has a dear place in my heart. I was too young at the time, but I did briefly
appreciate it.
Partake in the I Love Bees ARG. I did not at the time at all understand what I Love Bees was at the time. If you're not familiar with I Love Bees, it was a huge marketing ARG that came out at the announcement of Halo 2. The very first trailer they ever put out for Halo 2, at the end of the trailer where it showed the original Xbox logo, at the bottom it said Xbox.com. For a brief second, it glitched and it said ilovebees.com. And if you went to that website, you were greeted with a website that was seemingly completely disconnected. There's whole videos and podcast episodes on this, so I won't get too deep into it. Short story long. It was an ARG. They're basically, what they said is that an AI from the Halo universe timeframe ended up falling through a time loop, ended up in this web host server for this website, I Love Bees, and was at war with a Covenant AI. All this happening on the website. All of this ultimately led to phone calls to geographically pinpointed phone booths that would ask questions that had to be answered with the correct answer to get more coordinates to basically tie all this together. Cool. Yeah, it's such a fucking crazy ARG. All of that tied down to like, okay, once all of this is solved, go to one of these 3 places across the country. It was New York, LA, and San Francisco. Go to one of these 3 places within this time frame if you've got this information, and something will happen. Well, what ended up happening is the people that solved this ARG and went there at the time designated got to play Halo 2 in a closed theater like 3 months before the actual release. So it was a huge, awesome ARG. And like, I remember going to that website and I was too young to understand what I was looking at. But like, I was like, this is fucking weird. Why is the page all broken? Why is there? And so like, Halo has such a deep place in my heart and my childhood that like, I want it to be good again. It's like the new Fable. I'm so terrified the new Fable is going to be absolute trash because of how bad it looks. Like, just...
I mean, Microsoft over the past 10 years or so is just... They've ruined their reputation for making quality games. There's been the average, or not the average, there's been the outlier now and again where that's really good, but the majority of what they make has been really poor. Yeah. And going back to the games that we loved that made them who they are, we're just like, shit.
Yeah.
Can they do this? Please? Please don't fuck this up again.
Yeah. So
I mean, even Halo Infinite at launch was very much disliked, but that's also because the previous two games didn't have the best of reputations.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it like Fable's another one of those games. Like for me, like Fable, Halo, like Ragnarok Online. Like there's a ton of games that have been remade. Like Ragnarok Online 2 was probably the biggest heap of fucking garbage. And like I'm insulted to have that in my Steam library right now.
I did love the first one though.
Yeah, the first one was good.
That's how much. Yeah. Oh yeah. I was telling Russ, like I was actually in I played it
top
since
100.
their like second, but yeah, I was in their Hall of Fame for top 100 people to reach level 99, and then I was top 100 like of my specific class for like a good couple of years. I was on their Hall of Fame, and then I think the company like sold or something like that, and servers got wiped and all that shit. So like I'll never find that information again. But
he was one of the first. I think you were one of the first 100 people to get to Stalker. Right, which was the evolved class of Rogue.
Level 99
That's
of Stalkers.
What it was.
It was the third job evolution of Rogue.
For those of you who have no idea what Ragnarok is, you missed out on something really amazing. And there are still private servers for it, believe it or not. So it's actually
still a very popular game.
Yeah, fantastic game. And if you like WoW, you won't like it. That's just. WoW players will not like Ragnarok, so I don't even think a lot of Final Fantasy 14. Yeah, it is.
No, it's such an old RPG MMO that you're going to struggle.
Yeah, if you are not a fan of, what Knights of Camelot, was that the one before EverQuest? If you're not a fan of old MMOs, you won't like it. I believe
so.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. It is a very old MMO.
But speaking of old MMOs, before we transfer over to our quickfire news here, one of our patrons, good guy in the chat, mentioned a MMO that looks a lot like EverQuest. It's a modern game, but it is definitely built graphically like EverQuest. It's called Pantheon? No.
Pantheon.
Yeah, it is Pantheon. Rise of the Fallen. Is that what it was? The subtitle? Jesus Christ, I'm doing great. Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. It was previously, it's a game that is kickstarted. You can still pledge to it and get some boons and stuff like that, but it is entering early access, apparently with a small price tag attached to it. You have to go to their website for details, but they just announced their roadmap because they're going into early access in December. And as somebody who loves EverQuest and again thinks it's one of the best MMOs of all time, this game really looks like it's going to scratch that itch until Ashes of Creation finally gets off its ass and also launches in early access whenever the fuck that happens. But if you're interested
he does really love EverQuest. He doesn't shut up about it.
Yeah, it's like Tenchu to me. It's Tenchu and EverQuest. Tenchu and EverQuest. So, if you're interested in MMOs that have old school tab-based targeting that kind of scratch that nostalgic itch, graphically not impressive by any means, but like animations look good, the fluidity of motion in the game looks good. Check it out. Pantheon Rise of the Fallen looks pretty good. Now, Tim, let's talk some quickfire news, buddy. What do you got for us tonight?
Into the next set of quickfire news. This one begins with a Pokemon rumor or leak. Actually, its code name is Synapse. Who knows what that means? But supposedly it is going to focus on being a multiplayer Pokemon game that is battle focused. So that could be a whole lot of things. Who knows? Like I said, it's a supposed leak, and I guess we'll learn more eventually.
Do we think
Nintendo is? Go ahead.
Do we think it might be like a new Pokemon Stadium? If it's battle focused.
That was where my mind went to. I mean, because Pokemon Stadium was an offline game, and so you really couldn't do a whole lot with it other than through the game. This would allow people to play online, and
that'd be cool if a new Pokemon Stadium.
It would make me wonder if it would allow you to connect to the other Pokemon games and maybe, you know, collect Pokemon in Pokemon Arceus Y and Z or whatever the heck the new one's called, or whatever other new Pokemon game. No, because there's a new Pokemon Arceus coming out.
Oh Jesus! I did not.
Yeah, no, there's another one. I think it's called YZ or something along those lines. It doesn't matter. They haven't shown anything other than the fact that there's a new Arceus, and I'm hoping that they build upon it because the first one was actually, it had a good foundation, but otherwise it was like barren. But anyways, I don't know. It's multiplayer and battle focused. So I mean, Stadium, that would be an interesting one. That was not where my mind went to originally. I was hoping it'd be not that, but at the same time, that would work, and it would allow them to easily connect it to where, well, if you want to get more Pokemon, go buy the other one.
Yeah,
and so that's Nintendo for you.
Yes, capitalize on your childhood and your delusions of the past.
Right.
Does that make Nintendo fans have Stockholm syndrome?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, they 100% do. 100%.
Yeah.
Especially if they're the kind of fans that are like, Nintendo's the best. They don't ever try to totally screw me over every time they try to screw me over and steal my work.
They absolutely have never only released digital copies of games that are remade for a limited time only, so you can't buy them even though they're fucking digital.
Yeah, right? That makes no sense to me. But you know,
they're definitely not the Apple of the game industry.
No, not at all.
I would almost put them in the level of Fantastic at this point, but
I don't think they're that bad. They've been along.
Let's calm down.
Goodwill. They had goodwill, and they're doing everything they can to get rid of it.
Well, look, man. At some point, you got to cash in that karma for some bad karma. Otherwise, something really bad is going to happen, right?
Well, speaking of good karma, a fantastic RPG, minus the MMO part of it, it's just released. It is made by Atlas, and it is called Metaphor Refantasio. I've heard others call it Refantasio. It's a weird word, not an existing real word. It just released the other day, Friday, I think, so yesterday, and it's already sold over 1 million copies, and it is Atlas's best-selling game ever, or fastest-selling game, rather, not best.
We had a special guest come on to talk about that game.
Yes,
back at
she was pretty excited about it.
Yeah, 1 year anniversary, I think. Wasn't it that episode? I feel like it was our 1 year anniversary.
I don't know if that was our 1 year, but I guarantee if you go to V's channel, Mom's Den, I think is what it is. I guarantee you right now she's playing it. And
go 100%.
Check her out.
Yeah, V is absolutely playing it.
Yes, and this game, man, it does look freaking good. Like I mentioned earlier in the episode, apparently there's some pretty basic features that even PlayStation 3 games are supposed to have, like anti-aliasing and stuff that this game misses, or is lacking, rather. But otherwise, the game's just supposed to be super freaking good. It's actually on PlayStation 5 right now. It's one of the best reviewed games of the year. If you were to aggregate the PC and the Xbox versions, then it's lower than that. But it goes from 94 to 92, 92.2 or something like that. I did the math on it earlier. The PS5 version rather, has a 94, which is tied with the likes of Elden Ring and Astrobot, actually. But if you like turn-based RPGs, this sounds like it's the 100% the game for you. I would definitely go look it up. It's a little bit weird. Not everyone. There's a lot of people on Twitter like, this game is going to win Game of the Year, and I'm like,
no.
I don't know. I don't see it.
It might win Game of the Year.
I can see it winning a Game of the Year on the random website or best RPG of the year, but also Final Fantasy VII Remake 2 came out this year, so that's what the argument I've been trying to make with people the past week or so, and people are like, it's going to win the year. I'm like, man, mass appeal matters.
Yeah,
it really matters, and this game doesn't have that. And also, when's the last time you saw a turn-based RPG win Game of the Year at something like the Game Awards?
Yeah. That episode was episode 51. It was our 1 year anniversary. It wasn't our 1 year anniversary of episodes, but time wise, it was our 1 year anniversary. We had V on, and she talked to us about it. I guarantee she's playing right now.
Yeah. She goes into in depth of what we knew about it at the time, and if you're interested, you can either go watch her play it now, or you can go watch that episode.
Yeah.
But moving on,
I recommend watching the episode.
Yes,
thank you.
As well. Hogwarts Legacy. There's a rumor at the moment, but it's written about by just about everywhere, so it's probably not untrue. It's supposed to be getting a definitive edition, which supposedly has a ton of extra content. So basically, a major DLC is going to be added to it. And supposedly, it is going to include 10 to 15 hours of additional content that has a new storyline, new quests, new side quests, new activities, and outfits, and of course, spells and that stuff. So I guess if you want this, you should be able to buy it as a separate DLC if you own the game already. I mean, 30 million people bought this game, so they don't need to buy the definitive edition. But if you have yet to buy it, there you go. It's going to be a all-in-one for you.
Happy I waited.
Yeah, right. The game is fantastic, by the way.
I'm sure it is. Like, yeah.
I don't care for Hogwarts or for Harry Potter. I never have.
Not my cup of tea either.
I bought the game and it's totally worth it. Absolutely. That is an absolute love letter to the universe.
Our mutual friend Henderson played it when it came out, and I was chatting with him, and he was talking about turning people into chickens and dropping anvils on people's heads, and I'm like, this sounds amazing.
It's fun. It's super fun. Very well put together.
I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, but that game just like. That's the kind of game I would watch a let's play on. Like, okay. I don't want to play it myself, but I would absolutely watch somebody else play it because I'm like, I love the lore. You know, I started reading the books in like 3rd grade, so like, you know, like I've got a lot of like that nostalgia factor to it. But it's not a type of game that I personally would play.
Fair enough. I want to play it. I'm passing interest in Harry Potter. I prefer my wizards in space.
Yes.
But
careful, your wife might hear you.
She's doing schoolwork. It's fine. I'm safe. She's not going to expecto patronus my ass or whatever the fuck. Avada could get my ass. I don't know.
It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
Fucking whatever.
Sorry.
So I don't know. It's a game I do want to play though. I think it's cool. I love any game that's set like in the Hogwarts has an interesting lore to it that has not been explored as much as I feel like it could, and I love it when people like kind of release that IP and let people come in and be like, hey, I have an idea for your world. Like, what if we built this in it? And I think that's really cool because that's how, in my opinion, stuff grows and gets better. Theoretically, unless you're the creators of Star Wars Acolyte or Lord of the Rings of Power, then you're just assholes. But that's different. I'm going to keep saying that till the end of time.
I would 100% agree with you on that.
I still haven't watched it yet.
You don't need to.
Like, I almost want. I know we talked about this. What was it, like Wednesday? But like, I want to watch it just so that I know how bad it is, not just listening to people tell me how bad it is.
I think Disney has officially killed themselves when you consider that Acolyte was so bad they canceled it after 1 season, and then they're like, you know what? Let's do more of that, and released Agatha, which is doing worse than the Acolyte.
Yep. To be fair, Agatha was
that one.
Agatha's. It
was already in development.
Yeah, it was already being filmed. That is it's Marvel. It's alongside the WandaVision show. It follows Agatha, which like why they thought that was a good idea to make her own show is beyond me. But 1% did chime in here and he said it's too bad the Shadow of War games aren't canon, and I cannot agree more because a Shadow of War was really fucking cool. There is a new Lord of the Rings canon animation coming out. Actually just saw an ad for it when I saw Beetlejuice 2 with the wife today. Not by choice, by accident. I'll tell you guys about that later. It's very funny. But there's an ad for an animated Lord of the Rings set, I think it was 2,000 years before or 200 years before the War of the One Ring. And it actually looks pretty good. I don't know how accurate it is to J.R. Tolkien's original work, if it's completely unique story, what the case is, but it looks cool.
200 years would make more sense.
You would know more than I do. So
I think.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Oh. Moving on with quickfire news.
Yeah, I got a little derailed there. That's my fault.
Just a little bit. That's all. I mean, things happen. Xbox is finally allowing you to buy your games directly from their app, which, welcome to 2020 when PlayStation allowed you to do the same. When it comes to, I'm not going to try. Splinter Cell is, they announced the remake in 2021, and we've heard absolutely nothing since. I believe this is a leak. More or less, the leak says that they're aiming more than likely for a 2026 release date. Apparently, the developers did state that the game is sticking to a linear format, meaning they are steering clear of an open world remake.
Good.
It is traditional and true to what the original game was, or games were.
Give me more of Chaos Theory. Chaos Theory was such a good fucking game. It doesn't hold up for shit nowadays unless you play it on controller, but
No, but for its time, it was an amazing.
Oh God, it was
amazing game.
Dude, shooting out lights? What? That was groundbreaking. I know everybody's like, yeah, dude, of course you can shoot out lights. That wasn't the thing in early gaming. You couldn't affect lighting in video games, and Splinter Cell did that. They made that.
They were the first time. Yep. Yeah, they were the first real ones.
I think they were the first ones to shoot through glass too, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember
about that one.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I think Tom Clancy holds that trophy.
Is it Tom Clancy for that one?
Splinter Cell is
yeah, I guess it would have been earlier, like Rainbow Six, I think is what he's saying. Because that would have been the series before.
GoldenEye not allow you to shoot through glass in some occasions?
I don't
No,
think
you would
it did.
break the glass, but you wouldn't shoot through it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was one of those Tom Clancy games. I don't think it was Rainbow Six, but it was one of like the original Tom Clancy games.
Yeah.
Because I think he was still alive for that.
Anyways,
according to an AI, the first game that allowed you to shoot through glass was a game called Operation Body Count. I've never heard of it. It came out in 1994.
I am pulling it up right now. That is a Doom clone, as far as I can tell. It definitely looks like it's definitely a Doom or a Wolfenstein clone. Either or. 1994, I guess. I don't see anything here, obviously, in a quick glance that shows him shooting through glass, but yeah.
That was just an AI that told me that. But
yeah, who knows? But yeah, so who knows?
All right, so I got two more. If you ever played Disco Elysium, you know how exciting this news is. If you haven't, go buy it. The game is phenomenal. Think of it as like a I don't know, how do you call it? A beat cop.
It's
Baldur's Gate, I guess.
Yeah, it
without the combat, anyways.
It is a dice rolling game. I have tried to play it. I have to go back to play it again because I have a hard time with dice rolling games when the rules aren't clear. It feels cheating. Yeah. So like the rules really aren't made clear in that game. You just have to accept the fact that you're probably going to fail a lot, and in some cases that means dying and repeating what you've done a lot.
The intent is for the game to feel organic as you play through it. So it's not necessarily ability based. It's let's figure it out as we go, and hopefully we get what I want. But if I don't, let's see if I can adapt to what's happening.
It's very trial and error too.
Yeah, I mean, at occasion it can be 100%. I think that the writing and the storyline and just the way the game plays is totally freaking worth it. It's a phenomenal game. It sold super well and has phenomenal reviews and such.
I agree.
So having a spiritual successor releasing is awesome.
Yeah.
Although this is coming from a new studio rather than the original.
It is a spinoff, though. I believe it's previous devs. Because of the removal of the non-compete clause, I believe they went on to make their own studio. They separated from the previous one. So it is devs from Disco Elysium, at least some of them working on it. I will agree, like the narration, the dialogue, like a lot of that game is really good. It is just a very, much like Stalker 1, it has a high bar to entry, and you've really got to just be patient and work through it to get an understanding of how the game works, and then it gets better from everything I've been told and understand. Like you just kind of have to work through it. But yeah, I would love to see a spiritual successor to that. Like, sounds awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like, as you mentioned, it is from developers. So they actually, the original developers laid off about 25% of the staff earlier in the year. They were some of the people, to lose their jobs.
Yep.
But they started up a new game, and honestly, if they were figured out how to get around the copyright, laws and call this Disco Elysium 2, you'd have no idea it wasn't.
Right.
That's how close the game is, and so that's why they're calling it a spiritual successor. Heck, there's even a trailer for it if you find the IGN article for it. Anyways, but yeah, I mean the game.
Go ahead. Finish.
Yeah, the game is called. At least I think so. I'm pretty sure I found this right one. This was written yesterday. It's called XXX Night Shift.
Triple X Night Shift?
Yes.
They should have called it Isco Delicium.
Yeah, so just to totally screw over.
I'm pretty sure I watched a porno with that title.
Shit.
Can I say that on Twitch?
Well, you did, so we'll see what happens.
Oh, good lord.
I said PC Master Racist, and we haven't been deleted yet, so I think we're okay.
You did say that a couple weeks ago.
I did say that.
You did.
Oh, shit.
Little does the public know that's why I'm featured on today's show, because I'm not white.
Right. Yes, we had to clarify that we are. Yeah,
we have to hit those check marks.
Yeah, we've got to meet our what is it, ECI or DCNI? Yeah, whatever the hell.
DEI.
That's what it is.
DEI quota.
That one.
I'm the diversity hire.
You are the diversity.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, once again, just to plug our. You got one more?
One more bit of news.
Okay.
Yeah, one more.
My bad.
Yeah, I've got one more. This is real quick. The Quiet Place video game, they've actually stated that you can attach your mic to the game, and since, the whole intent is to be quiet, you also have to do it in real life. And so they can the enemies can hear your coughs, your screams, your whatever's going on. And so
your dog licking his balls next to you.
Yeah, or your wife yelling at you from the other room what you want to eat or whatever it may be. So that's gonna suck for me because I have 3 kids that never leave me alone when I play video games.
You want to know a pro gamer move for that? Mute your mic.
What's that? Well, I mean that's a cheap way to do it though.
Yeah, that's very cheap.
I was gonna say the pro gamer move would just be like getting like some whiskey, rubbing it into their teeth and giving them some like nighttime Tylenol.
My kids aren't that young anymore.
Yeah. You'd have to give them a full shot.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Hey, give them more NyQuil.
Disclaimer: I'm not giving my kids alcohol.
Yeah, we should probably clarify that. All right, just to plug it one more time.
In case it wasn't obvious, I'm not a parent.
Well, before you say anything, Russ, I want to say something about the Patreon side.
Go for it. Do it.
We are going to do a slight change up from now on with Quickfire, where we talk about a few things on Quickfire, but we're actually going to save a few of them for the Patreon side. So we will be talking about a couple of other games over there.
Yes.
For Quickfire.
And to give you all a tease on that, as I did at the top of the episode, patreon.com/CoinDropPod. Over there, we're going to be talking about an interview about an upcoming MMORPG, a confirmed game to a great horror game that was underrated when it released, a port of a very famous Western game coming to PC finally. Astrobot has done something no other game other than Mario has. So that's pretty cool. PS5 performance information. There's actually some good stuff here. There's some interesting metrics that we'll be talking about, and a game that Chris is bringing to us called The Forever Winter. So we will find out more about that over on Patreon. Please come over there. Consider coming over there and checking us out. It's $3 a month, less than the cost of a cup of coffee, even if you drink it black like my insane psychopathic ass. Yeah. Tim, take us out.
Tell your mom I said hi.
Have a great night, everyone.